The Titanic sank on April 15, 1912. You know this. Everyone knows this. What if the ship that sank wasn't the Titanic? Not a metaphor. Not a conspiracy theory in the dismissive sense. A documented, evidence-supported argument made by researchers, journalists, and a retired ship worker who claimed to have been there. That the vessel sitting on the bottom of the North Atlantic is not the ship the world thinks it is. That it is, in fact, the Olympic, the Titanic's older sister ship. And that the switch was deliberate. Motivated by money. Planned at the highest levels of the White Star Line, and executed with the full knowledge that the ship would be sunk, though perhaps not that 500 people would die in the process. This is not a fringe theory. It has been investigated by serious journalists, documented in books, and debated by maritime historians for decades. It has never been fully disproven. And the evidence, when you lay it out in sequence, is not comfortable to dismiss. So let's lay it out. In sequence. Starting with the money. Because it always starts with the money. In 1912, the White Star Line was in serious financial trouble. The company was owned by J.P. Morgan's International Mercantile Marine, a conglomerate that had overleveraged itself acquiring shipping lines across the Atlantic. The two crown jewels of the White Star fleet were the Olympic and the Titanic sister ships, nearly identical, built at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. The Olympic launched first, in October 1910. It was supposed to be the ship that saved the company, the largest, most luxurious ocean liner ever built, a commercial triumph that would generate years of revenue. Instead, within its first year of service, the Olympic was involved in two serious collisions. The first, in September 1911, was a collision with a Royal Navy warship called HMS Hawke in Southampton water. The damage to the Olympic was severe. Her hull was punctured, her keel was bent, and she was taken out of service for weeks. The collision was investigated, and the inquiry found the Olympic to be at fault. This matters enormously, because it meant the White Star Line's insurance claim was denied. They received nothing. The repair costs were catastrophic, and the Olympic, once repaired, was never quite right again. Engineers and workers at Harland and Wolff noted that the ship had structural issues that could not be fully corrected, damage at the keel level that compromised her long-term integrity, a ship that could not be fully insured, a ship with hidden structural damage, a ship that was costing the company money every day it sailed at reduced capacity, and sitting in the next dry dock, almost complete, nearly identical in every external detail, the Titanic. Here is where the theory begins. The proposition is straightforward. Sometime in late 1911 or early 1912, a decision was made to swap the ships, to transfer enough identifying features, nameplates, fittings, interior fixtures, from the Titanic to the damaged Olympic so that the damaged ship would sail under the Titanic's name, and to send the real Olympic, now sailing as the Titanic, on its maiden voyage, where it would be deliberately sunk. The insurance payout on the Titanic, which had never been in a collision and was fully insured, would be enormous, enough to cover the Olympic's repair costs, stabilize the company's finances, and replace the damaged hull with a brand new ship. The plan, if it existed, was elegant in its simplicity: two nearly identical ships, a straightforward swap of identifying details, a controlled sinking in iceberg-patrolled waters, where a collision could be staged to look like an accident, and a payout that would save the company. The only problem, if this is what happened, is that the rescue ships did not arrive in time, and 1,500 people who were supposed to be evacuated before the ship went down were not. There are three categories of evidence that supporters of this theory point to: the physical evidence, the financial evidence, and the testimony evidence. Each one individually is explainable. Together, they form a pattern that is harder to dismiss. The physical evidence begins with the wreck itself. When the Titanic was discovered by Robert Ballard in 1985, photographs and video of the hull were extensively documented. Researchers examining the wreck footage noted something unusual on the hull in the area of the bow. The hull number, stamped directly into the steel during construction, appeared to show 401 in some photographs. The Titanic's hull number was 401. The Olympic's hull number was 400. This would seem to confirm the ship is the Titanic, except that the number on the wreck was observed by some researchers to be stamped over, a second number beneath the visible one. The argument: if the ships were swapped, the original hull number stamped into the Olympic's steel at construction could not be removed. It could only be covered. This evidence is contested. The wreck photographs are degraded, the visibility is poor, and different researchers reading the same images reach different conclusions. But it has never been definitively settled. The second category of physical evidence involves the portholes. Construction photographs of the Titanic, taken at Harland and Wolff before launch, show a specific pattern of portholes along the B-deck promenade, 14 evenly spaced. Photographs of the Olympic at the same stage show a different arrangement, 16 portholes, unevenly spaced. Photographs of the ship that sailed as the Titanic on its maiden voyage show 16 portholes, unevenly spaced, the same arrangement as the Olympic. The counter-argument is that the porthole arrangement was changed during the Titanic's fitting-out period to improve the first-class accommodation layout. A reasonable explanation. But the timing of that change, documented as occurring during the same period when the Olympic was in dry dock for repairs, has never been fully explained. The financial evidence is the most compelling. J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier in America and the ultimate owner of the White Star Line, had booked passage on the Titanic for its maiden voyage. He canceled at the last minute, citing illness. He was photographed that same week at a spa in France, appearing entirely healthy. He was not the only one. Several of the wealthiest and most well-connected passengers who had booked the Titanic canceled in the days before departure. Among them Henry Clay Frick, one of America's richest men, and Robert Bacon, the former U.S. Secretary of State. The official reasons given were various: illness, business, personal matters. None of them ever fully explained their change of plans. The insurance on the Titanic was substantial. The ship was insured for £5 million, considered by some researchers to be above its actual market value at the time. The White Star Line filed the insurance claim promptly after the sinking. It was paid. The Olympic, the supposed survivor of the two ships, continued to sail under that name until 1935, when it was retired and scrapped. When the Olympic was scrapped, the workers noted something unusual. The interior fittings, the woodwork, the fixtures, the decorative elements, did not match the ship's original construction records. They were, in several documented cases, newer than they should have been, as if they had been installed during a refit or transferred from another ship. The testimony evidence is the most human and the most difficult to verify. A man named Paddy Doyle, who worked at Harland and Wolff during the construction and fitting of both ships, claimed in interviews in the 1990, near the end of his life, that he had personally participated in the swap, that he had helped transfer nameplates, fittings, and identifying markers from the Titanic to the Olympic, that he had been paid to keep silent for 80 years. His testimony cannot be verified. He named no living corroborators. His account contained several details that matched the documentary record precisely, and several that could not be checked at all. This is the nature of testimony evidence. It proves nothing. It explains nothing that cannot be explained another way, and yet it sits there, specific and detailed and dying with its speaker, and it cannot be entirely ignored. What do we actually know for certain? We know the Olympic was damaged in 1911, and the insurance claim was denied. We know the White Star Line was in serious financial difficulty. We know the two ships were nearly identical and were in dry dock simultaneously. We know that J.P. Morgan and several other wealthy, connected men canceled their Titanic bookings at the last minute. We know the porthole arrangement on the maiden voyage ship matched the Olympic, not the Titanic as originally built. We know that when the Olympic was scrapped, workers found anomalies in its interior fittings. We know the insurance claim was substantial and was paid in full. None of this proves the ships were swapped. Each piece of evidence has an alternative explanation. The porthole change was a design modification. Morgan was genuinely unwell. The fitting anomalies were standard refits. Paddy Doyle was an old man seeking attention. Every single one of those explanations is possible. But here is the question that the theory forces you to sit with. If you were running a company that was financially ruined, if you had a damaged ship you could not insure, and a new ship that was fully covered, if the two ships were almost indistinguishable from the outside, if you had the access, the motive, and the means, would you? The people who died on the Titanic, or on whatever ship that was, deserve a complete accounting. The evidence suggests that accounting has never been given. The wreck sits at 800 meters below the surface of the North Atlantic, and every question asked of it is answered only by silence. If this was buried, you deserve to know. Subscribe to Buried Record. New entries every week. The log continues.